The same. Try to 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Huh?
Just keep counting for me.
A, B, C, E, F, G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7. All right.
Social structure and the embedded nature of violence.
In America. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Just had a video, a program on gentrification and housing, and, growth of Nashville. And,
Mic check.
Okay, everything is all right with me? Yes, if everything, okay. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is social structure and the embedded nature of violence in America. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about social structure and the embedded nature of violence in America, Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Sanford, you've been with us so many times that I'm sure that the majority of people know you, but in case there might be one or two who might not know the person whom I describe as Dr. EKSanford, Dr. EKSanford, that they might not know you. So take the first part of this segment to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And then by that time, when we get into the second segment, we can deal with the topic for the day, social structure and the embedded nature of violence in society. Let's do it from that perspective.
Okay, well, thank you very much again for being here. I am, again, Dr. EKSanford. I'm a professor at Tennessee State University in the Department of Sociology. I've been there now over 20 years. I recall when you and I were there together. But I would like to take today's introduction of myself back to doing my postdoc degree at Penn State University, did my PhD at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and there I worked on several different projects while I was completing that degree. I think the one that is most interesting for today's topic is that of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. And there we had a victims assistance program that we reached out to victims of crime throughout the United States. And these were throughout the United States where we had chiefs of police and we would have national conferences. So I think that's very apropos for today's topic on looking at violence in America. But I also would like to say I was the assistant evaluation person at the national headquarters of the American Red Cross. So I'm very proud of working on HIV/AIDS education programs that were funded by the Centers for Disease Control, the United States Congress, and the national headquarters of the American Red Cross. And those programs are still present today, and I've always been proud of that. And I have to also say I did my undergraduate work at North Carolina Central University with some at North Carolina in Chapel Hill as well. So I've been very proud of that, but here as a professor at Tennessee State University.
Very good. And of course, when we talk about social structure, when you talk about a social structure, what are you talking about as a sociologist?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that because I wanted to start it off by trying to define it. When we think, and for the listening audience to understand social structure, we're thinking about those 10 major institutions that make up society. And as a visual, if you can think about a web that kind of is over us here in the American society, they are the 10 institutions. You have to think in terms of the most primary one, according to sociologists, is that of the family, say the institution of the family. And if you think in terms of violence in America, how does the environment that we live in impact us, say historically, as America unfolded for hundreds of years of enslavement to the present, and the impact of it on the institution of, say, the African American family and all families. So that's one of the primary institutions. The second one I would like to try to stress out of the 10 is that of education, the institution of education. A third one is the institution of economics, and a fourth and very important one is the institution of religion. But very quickly, we have to understand that we also have government/politics as an institution that makes up our society in which we live in. We have the institution of medicine, the institution of the military, the institution of science, and we also have the institution of law, which I'm hoping today in our conversation of violence is to look at law and how it is actually integrated with family, education, religion, and economics. And the inequities within those institutions can cause a lot of pervasiveness of violence in America. And the last institution, the 10th one, is very major, and that is technology, communication, telecommunication society that we're living in, and entertainment. These are the primary pillars, if you will, institutions that make up our society. And I'm hoping the listening audience can follow through our conversation by understanding that I'll be pulling from that framework in understanding violence in America.
And number 10, Doctor.
Yes.
As a sociologist, this is rather recent in terms of technology and et cetera, et cetera. And so I want you to elaborate upon that when we come back to the second segment, because I'm familiar with many of those others.
Yes.
But then we say technology and et cetera, and then recognizing that that is quite recent.
Yes.
They've also brought that in as one of the major institutions in reference to what you're talking about here today.
Absolutely, yes.
And of course, what we'll do, we'll take this first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. See, but you know, that's, and I was thinking about that because we used to deal with that.
Absolutely.
That
political
was
science.
Sociology 101.
That's right. That's right.
Institutions.
That's right.
Et cetera. But but when I started, there was no 10th, there was no technology and all of that.
It wasn't
entertainment and whatever. But now that's as important. As a matter of fact, that was what you talked about the last time we were here in terms of how that as an institution has impacted upon.
Absolutely.
That's excellent.
That's a major institution right now.
It is. It has to be.
My God.
It has to be.
I mean, even when you're thinking about violence, people being bullied, people committing suicide. You can look at the Olympics with Gabby. They said the way that the image of her on the stadium, and some people were upset because she didn't have a hand over heart, put it out in technology. Any other time, it wouldn't have been any issue.
That's right.
Yes. So, I mentioned that.
Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is social structure and the embedded nature of violence in America. And we have talking about the embedded nature of violence in America as well as social structure. Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. And of course, Doctor, let's see if we can pick up during the second segment some of the information that we've already talked about.
Yes. Well, I had a professor, Dr. Gerard Linsky, and he actually was a two-time president of the American Sociological Association, and I took him while I was at UNC in Chapel Hill. And he had a course that was entitled The Development of Human Societies, where he really looked at the 9 major institutions that made up social structure. And he looked at it from agrarian to hunting and gatherers to the beginning of an industrial society to a technological society. There were only 9 institutions during this particular time period, but now we have developed in this postmodernist age of having telecommunication society, computers, the internet, things in cyberspace. So that has become a major institution now that is making up the society in which we live in. And many of us cannot even think about not having that aspect of the society in which we live in. But in reference to today's topic, and this just came to mind as you asked that question in the last segment, that has become even a part of the violence in America. A lot of bullying is on. A lot of information is so fast and in this time with tweeting, with Instagram, with Facebook. All of that has become so institutionalized now that in communication has become so fast. It has all of its positive aspects, but it also has its negative aspects as well. Entertainment becomes a part of that last category as well. It's a combination of things that are now a primary part of our institution.
In other words, it's things that happen now.
Yes.
That you know about it, the world knows about it now.
Absolutely.
It might have not known about it, or it would have taken a much longer time for it to get all around, but it happened this morning, and now the world knows about it. So that's another institution now.
That is a strong institution, a major institution, and in reference to how it is impacting our development and how it impacted us personally. It's not even a little bit later. It could happen now and put on Instagram, and you know just a few moments later, it's already someone has tweeted something out. You can't even come off the podium. Someone else already knows about it and made a comment on it. But I want to pick up on that in reference to our topic today and looking at social structure, because we've talked about it before. In connection to understanding, I would like to try to very quickly define 3 terms, and one is how race has been defined within the society in which we live in thinking about those 10 institutions, or the 9 primary ones, or let's just say the family, economics, religion, and education and the law. Looking at hundreds of years of enslavement leading up to the present. How race is a category that has been defined as people as being inferior or superior. And from a sociological point of view, they place with certain physical characteristics that people may have placed in those categories, and think in terms how that has really impacted the mere institutions that we have been involved in as they evolve from an earlier period to the present. Let's just look at the family. If you think about hundreds of years of enslavement and families broken up, and so we all know that story. I don't have to go through it. And how did that same thing impact the economics? So let's just say that one category of people for hundreds of years leading to the present. How did that impact their education from an earlier period leading to the present? And then how was violence at that earlier time period embedded in the culture? That complex whole that encompasses any and everything that you can think about is defined as culture. And how did that impact the very fabric of American society as we think about violence, as it's gone from an earlier period and leads up to the present? So it's very important to understand how race was something that was placed into a category and defined in that way. And that when you think in terms of it being superior or inferior with those physical characteristics, it becomes embedded in the mindset of people when they just see someone that they have these thoughts or feelings about that group of people. And may not be able to understand why. It's just so embedded in the culture and in the mere institutions of our society. It's become institutionalized.
It's just part of it.
It's just a part of it.
You live in it, and
yes.
so living in it is almost like the air you breathe.
Absolutely.
In a real sense. Is that what we're saying?
That's exactly. Or the language that we speak. It's the very same thing. So when you think about that and then start thinking in terms of prejudice as a